Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you're well. It is Friday, the 1st of November 2024. Welcome to Saorsa Live. We're streaming across YouTube and TikTok tonight, and not on Facebook. I just wanted to save the memory on the computer. So please do take the time to like and share across both these platforms. If we do lose the stream on either of the platforms, please jump across to the other one and continue the conversation in the chat there. We're also recording this live and all the comments to ensure the security and integrity of the stream. So tonight, let's just start with our wee introduction. How do you recognise a battle when the weapons aren't guns or bombs, but are headlines and sound bites? Have you ever stopped to wonder why Scotland, a nation known for its resilience and spirit, is often depicted as weak and dependent? These questions strike at the heart of something far more insidious than simple media bias. It's a narrative war, a battle of perception. Welcome to the reality of Scotland Bad, where stories are spun not just to inform, but to shape how we feel about our nation's ability to govern itself. Imagine being told day after day that your country is failing, not in just one area, but across education, healthcare, and economic governance. That is the drum beat we hear, isn't it? And yet, while Scotland's struggles are magnified, the crises south of the border in places like Birmingham and Blackpool, Nottingham, receive a far more sympathetic portrayal. Have you ever wondered why? If this feels like an intentional distortion, that's because it is. This isn't just a problem for the SNP or a critique of individual leaders. It's a deliberate tactic meant to undermine our confidence as a nation. The goal is clear: to make us believe that independence is unthinkable. But it is truly the fault of our governance. Or are we witnessing a psychological campaign designed to keep us tied to Westminster? This isn't the first time the British state has deployed these tactics. Across history, nations seeking self-determination during the Empire time was portrayed as incapable or economically doomed, just to maintain control of them. Yet here in Scotland, Yet we are here in Scotland still confronting the same mechanisms, ones that make us question our worth and our future. The real question we should ask ourselves is this: are we ready to see through that spin? Are we prepared to recognise that these narratives are tools used to uphold a status quo that serves Westminster and not Scotland? We're about to go on a journey through more than just political drama or partisan squabbles. It's about the very identity of Scotland and our right to determine our own path. This isn't a battle for politicians alone. It's for every Scot who dreams of a nation that is proud, prosperous, and independent. Scotland isn't bad. Scotland is capable, innovative, and ready to stand on its own. But we must see that. We must first dismantle this propaganda that seeks to convince us otherwise. So let's dive in and explore this narrative war, because understanding it is the first step to winning it. But as always, let me play you this important message before we get started. We start our lives with an important reminder that we are fighting one of the world's greatest propaganda machines, the British state and their right-wing oligarch-run media. To combat this, we ask that you always follow, like and share, and comment positively across all social media platforms on any of your favourite Scottish independence creators and commentators. By doing this, you help to spread the word of our cause and manipulate social media algorithms to benefit our struggle. So please, for now, like and share this live stream, and if you haven't already, follow this account. Thank you. Right, so we're in for a bit of a conversation tonight, but let me just say hello to everybody in the two lands that we're in. We're on TikTok land on that screen, and over on this little laptop here, we are on YouTube land. So Alistair, I'm glad that you've managed to join us as well. There's John, Age of Aquarius, Kareem, jumping between both of them, and Robert Scrimminger as well. Listen, if you're in YouTube land and you can't comment, you need to subscribe first and then wait 5 minutes. So do us a favour, if you're wanting to join in the conversation, please just subscribe to the YouTube channel. It doesn't cost anything, it's just the word that they use for following on YouTube. Click that little subscribe button and then go for it. Hi Rumi, how are you? Good to see you. Right, let's have a look in TikTok land. There's Irish, there's Lisa, hi guys. And of course Kareem, I saw jumping across there as well. Listen, across in TikTok land as well, please join in the conversation. And if any of my moderators see a question from anybody on any of them, just you guys WhatsApp me so I can see what the question is in case I miss it. We've got 4 segments tonight, and then I've got a wee addendum at the end to do 3 little news articles which I feel need to be talked about. Alright, so let us begin. How do you fight a battle most people don't even know exists? Think for a moment. If you hear a story enough times from enough sources, does it become the truth, or is it something more sinister? Scotland is facing such a battle of narratives. And at the heart of this is something that you may have heard of, that we all have heard of, and that's the phrase Scotland bad. This isn't a physical confrontation, it's a war of words, news coverage and how stories are spun. To grasp its significance, we must dissect where the narrative originates, how it operates, and the ways it impacts on the way we view our nation. The phrase Scotland bad describes a steady flow of negative press about Scotland's governance. Problems and challenges are exaggerated while successes are downplayed or ignored. But more insidiously, it's not just about pointing out flaws. It's about embedding the belief that Scotland is incapable of governing itself without Westminster. The message is clear. Without the UK, Scotland is doomed to failure. Let's look at some examples to understand how this message is crafted. Do you remember the police tent outside Nicola Sturgeon's home during the investigation into the SNP finances? Now, that image was broadcast endlessly. It was on the TV news, it was on the newspapers, all across social media. The narrative was relentless, even when updates weren't significant. Now compare that to the muted reaction when it came to the Conservative MPs in Westminster benefiting improperly from pandemic contracts. They might have been legal, but they certainly weren't moral. Despite the scandal's gravity, the Scottish media didn't give it the same obsessive coverage. Do you see the pattern? A Scottish story is blown out of proportion, a Westminster crisis toned down. This discrepancy is not accidental. It feeds the Scotland bad narrative, making every political hiccup in Scotland seem catastrophic while just brushing off more serious crisis down south. Another prime example is Alex Salmond's trial. For months, the media presented it as a referendum on the entire independence movement of the leadership of Scotland. Headlines screamed about division, dysfunction and disgrace, but when Chris Pincher, a Conservative MP, faced similar allegations, the approach was soft and subdued and he got a cocky nickname, Pincher by name, Pincher by nature. It was laughed off. Ask yourself, why are Scotland's political figures and leaders subjected to a different standard? The answer lies in the power of repetition and psychological conditioning. Each negative story chips away at the public trust, painting independence as unthinkable. Psychology backs this up. Constant exposure to negative news shapes public opinion. People begin to believe that Scotland is broken, and those who already doubt independence find their biases confirmed. And for some Scots, the drumbeat creates a sense of inferiority, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, we're not good enough. That is called confirmation bias, and it is a real thing. And when coupled with the availability of a heuristic tendency, where you will see what you see the most becomes a mental shortcut. So if the information about the tent or about Alex Salmond is more readily available than the information about Westminster scandal, it becomes a mental shortcut for you to look at it in a negative way, and the damage is profound. Scotland gets etched into people's minds as a land of endless failure. Even in history, propaganda is not new. Look at Nazi Germany, what they used to incite division. The British Empire spun tales about Indians being unfit to rule, justifying colonialism, and now the Scotland bad narrative. It's not Nazi propaganda by a long shot, but the methods of using fear and doubt to maintain control are strikingly familiar. During the Salmond-Sturgeon hearings, the media framed internal agreements as an existential crisis for the SNP. A procedural matter became sensationalised drama on television. And just as the movement was gaining momentum, support for independence wavered. That's not a coincidence. That is strategy. But this battle isn't political, it's psychological. Years of negative portrayals undermine Scottish pride, chipping away at our confidence. We're subtly conditioned to believe Scotland can't thrive without the UK. So how do we dismantle this? Well, it starts with media literacy. We must learn to question the headlines, identify the spin and recognise the agendas. Scotland's media needs more independent voices, platforms that celebrate our nation's achievements. We've got the National. That's not enough. We need more. And we're pretty good at doing it on social media. But that doesn't get the credibility that we need into everybody's homes. We need to spread our stories still through social media. We still have to do it. This is one of our strengths. It's one of our greatest innovations. Our cultural vibrance, our leadership and green energy, all these things need to be celebrated all the time. And let the world and our people see the Scotland we believe in and engage actively in political discourse. Read, debate and question everything. Our path to independence depends on our belief in Scotland's potential. Our nation isn't inherently broken. We are not doomed to fail. And the Scotland bad narrative is a tool wielded by those desperate to maintain control. Scotland is rich in culture, resilience and innovation, and armed with awareness. We can confront the propaganda. We can envision a nation proud, prosperous and ready to stand on its own.
Have you ever noticed how Scotland is portrayed in the media? Every flaw is magnified, every success brushed aside, feeding a relentless narrative. Scotland is bad. This isn't an innocent portrayal. It's a psychological war aimed at our confidence. Picture the police tent outside Nicola Sturgeon's home, broadcast endlessly, contrasted with the subdued coverage of Westminster's pandemic scandals. Why the double standard? It's deliberate, a strategy designed to convince us we're incapable of self-governance. History has shown us the power of repetition in shaping belief. So, the real question is, if Scotland is truly as broken as they claim, why must they work so hard to make us believe it?
Yeah, why do they have to work so hard to make us believe that we're shit at life? You know, Scotland's so depressing. It's not. We are brilliant. And it's easy for us to say this. It really, really is, because we believe, we know that Scotland is more than capable of holding its own, for being independent, for finding its own path, and from making mistakes and learning from it like any normal nation. We don't need to be babysat. And I kind of feel sorry for the people that can't see that. And we have to remember, this is really important, right? We have to remember independence isn't just for us. When we get it, all the people that don't believe in it, they're going to have to live with us. And as much as some of us will want to be dead gloaty, I wouldn't recommend it. We just have to build a better Scotland and make it great. You know, that's what it's about. Right, let's have a wee look in YouTube land. I did say hello to Rumi. There's Jock Gibson. How you doing, Jock? And Ruth. Rumi as well. So mainstream media seems no. Good comments, good conversation. Oh, there's Barry. Hi, Barry. Brilliant. And nobody can stop us publishing the truth. Well done, Barry. Let's have a wee look across in TikTok land. Great chat with Lisa and a few other people going on there, which is great. Listen, thank you everybody again for joining us this evening. We'll just carry on with this because we need to get through this so I can go and drink more coffee and stuff like that and get on to Discord afterwards. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next part, which is actually looking at England bad, you know, because they've got it tough down there, I swear. Okay, I've got some examples after this segment as well that we can have a look at. So we're surrounded by stories we're told to accept without question. Every headline, every news broadcast, every opinion piece subtly shapes how we see the world. But have you ever wondered who benefits from these stories and why they're told the way they are? Consider this. Why does the narrative around Scotland so often focus on failure, dependency and struggle? We see it every day, a constant drumbeat implying Scotland is not capable of managing its own affairs. But what if the real problem isn't Scotland itself, but rather the selective bias focus of the media? Scotland's a nation of perseverance and spirit. It's endured decades of being painted needy and inept. Stories claim our governance is broken, our leaders corrupt, and our public services failing. We're led to believe that without the UK, Scotland would crumble. Yet, step back and let's compare these portrayals to issues happening south of the border. Take teacher pay disparity as an example. In England, experienced teachers earn thousands less than their counterparts in Scotland. I think in some cases up to £10,000 less. It might be between 3 and 10 depending. And that's not just really an economic figure, that's a crisis in education. English head teachers in regions near Scottish borders are actually now talking and raising alarms about an exodus of teachers going across the border for better pay and conditions and lighter workloads in Scotland. This is a real thing. It's a looming threat to England's educational stability. Can you imagine that? English teachers, not the subject English teachers, but teachers from England wanting to come to Scotland to work. Come on, I welcome them. Absolutely. And yet, where are the blistering headlines about Westminster's neglect of the English education system? Now, contrast this with the outrage we hear here when there's a problem in Scottish education, framed as proof that the Scottish government is failing. But when England faces a recruitment crisis severe enough to drive teachers away, the media's silence is deafening. What about healthcare? Well, the Royal College of Nursing predicts thousands fewer nursing students graduating in England over the coming years. England's NHS is already at breaking point, with staff shortages worsening and patients waiting longer than ever. Yet this alarming forecast barely makes a blip in the national conversation. Meanwhile, when Scotland's NHS struggles, the stories are relentless. Failures of the SNP governance, they shout. Where's the equal scrutiny then, I say, of England's healthcare system? It's not as if the crisis there is minor, it's catastrophic. What about the strikes? Public sector workers in England are striking over low pay and poor conditions. From healthcare to education, essential services are teetering on the edge of collapse. And that is even with the Labour government. Yet these strikes are downplayed as inconveniences, disruptions to daily life, and not symptoms of a systemic breakdown. In Scotland, similar strikes were portrayed as evidence of a failing government, but you have to remember in Scotland we had far less strikes. We were negotiating and engaging as often as possible with the unions. But how often do we question why the media holds Scotland to a harsher standard? This disparity isn't coincidental. By downplaying England's crises and magnifying Scotland's struggles, a narrative is reinforced that Scotland is uniquely flawed. It's a narrative that fosters dependence, one that convinces some Scots that they need the UK to function. We need to wrap ourselves in the Union Jack just to stay warm. Maybe with the energy prices, we should do that. No, don't go and wrap yourself in a Union Jack. I will not speak to anybody that does that. Anyway, if you repeat the story enough, it seeps into the national psyche, eroding our self-belief. But we must ask, why does the media work so hard to undermine Scotland's confidence? And the answer is political. By emphasising Scotland's problems and ignoring England's, the media supports the Union. It sows doubt about Scotland's ability to thrive independently. Yet if we looked objectively, we see that England's challenges, from its healthcare meltdown to educational woes, are equally, if not more severe, than what Scotland's problems are being portrayed by the media. The reality is this: England's issues are just as grave, if not graver, than Scotland's. But by highlighting Scotland's problems and ignoring England's, the media fuels a narrative that keeps Scotland tethered to Westminster. Scotland doesn't need the UK to fix its challenges. We have shown time and time again resilience, creativity and the capacity for governance. The real question is, how long will England's own crisis be ignored, all to keep up the illusion that Scotland cannot stand on its own?
Have you ever wondered why stories about Scotland are so often filled with failure, dependency, and struggle? We're told day after day that our governance is broken, our leaders corrupt, and our nation helpless without Westminster. Yet look closer. In England, experienced teachers earn over £10,000 less than in Scotland, creating a crisis that's barely mentioned. England's NHS faces catastrophic staff shortages, but where's the outrage? When public sector strikes paralyze English cities, they're downplayed, while similar events in Scotland are painted as proof of SNP incompetence. This double standard isn't coincidence, it's political strategy. So if Scotland's challenges are magnified, while England's crises are quietly ignored, we must ask, who truly benefits from making us doubt our own potential?
I wonder sometimes, right, why people believe what they believe about our own country. I started thinking about probably a phrase that a lot of people will consider to be offensive, but I'm going to say it anyway, as it's, I can't understand how any self-respecting Scot cannot understand why independence and making our own decisions would be better for them, their kids, their grandkids, their mums and dads, all of us. You know, it's insane. See, last week, the whole series of videos that I've been doing, I've been taking a subject and kind of talking about it on a Monday and a Tuesday and a Wednesday and a Thursday, and then coming live to sort of summarise the things and interact with you guys and talk and be here. All right. They're all overlapping. They're all intertwined, because this whole Scotland bad narrative, when we look at it, is kind of related to our economy. It's kind of related to the tools used by Westminster to deceive us, and they're all on the YouTube channel. I've kept them all on there. So listen, the guys in YouTube, I know that you guys have looked at them and things, but the guys in TikTok, just go to youtube.com/@Saorsa and you will be able to see all the things. I post them on TikTok as well, and I post them on YouTube. But it's all part of the same story. There's no firm lines between any of these videos that I'm making just now. It's important. It's important. Right. Let us move on. Let's have a look at any questions there. Scotland's problems are caused by Westminster. How much do we send them? How much do we get back? Yeah, last year, Gravy DJ, great thing to say, great comment. I think it was about 87.5 billion that we sent down last year. We got 41 billion back. It was about 30 billion spent on welfare, leaving but 14 billion surplus. And that is what was kind of, we're told that it's spent on our behalf on other things, but then a loan was taken out to the value of around about 22 billion. Now, that almost 30 odd billion pounds that is spent, part of it belonging to us as a surplus, and the rest of it as part of our share of loans and things. And when I did Scotland's economy last week or the week before, there's hidden costs of the union that they're all represented in GERS, but it's our share of things like overseas networking, overseas, aid like to Ukraine and Israel, overseas embassies, but the chunk of it is servicing the national debt. And this is all things that we don't have a say on. And if we were independent, and let's just take the we'll call it 88 billion, we'll round it up just for the sake of it. The 88 billion, if we were to do exactly what we're doing just now, 41 billion to spend on the devolved things but are now our own powers, and 30 billion to spend on welfare, etc., we would still have a surplus. Now, if you were to put that put several other things into the equation, like being able to write our own trade agreements, take out our own loans, invest in our own infrastructure, make Scotland a better place for Scots and to encourage positive immigration, it's only going to get better. So this is something that not a lot of people who are teetering on yes and soft no voters might not engage with that. So it's important that we can engage with that. And listen, anything that I put out publicly can be shared. Please go and share it. If you think that somebody might benefit from one of the videos just as a different point of view, please share it and let it be used. I think it's important. Let's have a quick look at some of the examples of what's going on down south as a whole. I've took half a dozen cities down south. Okay, so let's have a look. So why is it then when serious issues plague parts of England, they don't receive the same harsh, sensational coverage as challenges in Scotland? So we're going to look at maybe six cities, okay? And it's crucial to acknowledge that highlighting these struggles in these cities is not meant to criticise or belittle the residents in these cities. This is really important. It's a call to recognise the shared impact of Westminster's mismanagement and the deep-rooted structural issues that affect communities across the UK. The challenges that these cities face are the result of long-term neglect and policy failures, not a reflection of the resilience or worth of the people that live there. I personally stand in solidarity with my brothers and sisters down south who are fighting for better opportunities and investment in their communities, understanding that our critique here lies with the union and its priorities, not with the hard-working individuals enduring these hardships. We'll start with Luton, ranked as the worst place to live in England. Luton struggles from socio-economic issues and neglect in the urban landscape and very high crime rates. Yet these problems, you very rarely hear about them across the national media. Compare that to how even minor issues in Scotland become evidence of Holyrood's supposed failures. The disparity of reporting couldn't be more glaring. Birmingham has a crime rate of 128.9 per 1,000 residents. The city is facing widespread problems with violent crime and theft, yet when crime statistics are discussed, cities like Glasgow receive far more negative attention. Birmingham? Despite its significant struggles, the reports feel restrained, lacking the relentless... Hold on a second. New message coming in. We'll read that in a second. Where am I? Yeah. Lost my spot. We'll go straight to Bradford here. Right, Bradford was once known for its industrial might. It's now among the worst places to live in England. The crime rate there is a staggering 132.4 per 1,000 residents, compounded by public disorder and economic stagnation. Yet these issues are often framed as regional difficulties rather than failures of governance in such statistics. If such statistics came out of a Scottish city, you can bet the media would use it as ammunition against the Scottish government. Blackpool, once a beloved seaside resort, is now battles economic decline, high unemployment and soaring crime rates. The seasonal nature of tourism leaves residents with an unstable income, and the town's schools and infrastructure are in dire need of investment. But where is the outrage? Blackpool's challenges don't lead to sensational headlines, yet in Scotland, similar struggles are weaponised to portray us as incapable of managing our affairs. And there's Nottingham, that also paints a very troubling picture. They have 124.6 offences per 1,000 residents. This is a ridiculously high level of crime. I can't get over that. Nottingham's struggles are rarely portrayed as evidence of systemic failure in Westminster's governance. The contrast with the coverage of Scotland's issues is undeniable and telling. Middlesbrough, wait for this, 170.1 per 1,000 residents. That is crimes per 1,000 people. It ranks among the most dangerous places to live in the country. The city is grappling with unemployment, economic stagnation and environmental damage from its industrial past. Do you get the picture? I've got other things in my notes here for talking about it, but I'm feeling it a bit. When I wrote this, I sort of was pragmatic and sort of less emotional, but I'm feeling a bit angry in two cases here. One, we get shat on for the slightest thing in the media. And then you've got all this going on in some of the most famous cities in England. And we hardly hear about it. This might be the first time some of you guys are actually hearing about this stuff. You know? You just go and Google it. Worst things going on in English cities. What's the worst city to live in? Google it. Go and look it up yourselves. It's out there. It's in local newspapers, but it never ever hits the national headlines. I thought, listen, I'm just going to go straight to the jingle for this because I'm a bit cross. I'm a bit frustrated.
Why is it that when serious problems affect parts of England, the media downplays them? while similar issues in Scotland are portrayed as national failures. Think about cities like Luton or Birmingham, where communities face deep economic hardship, high crime, and neglected infrastructure. It's not the fault of the people living there, who work tirelessly and deserve better. It's the result of long-term mismanagement from Westminster. Yet, their struggles don't receive the harsh, relentless scrutiny Scotland does. We must empathize with our neighbors to the south, who often have it worse, while recognizing that this selective media focus is designed to keep us divided and feeling inferior. So the question is, who benefits from sowing division and pushing the idea that Scotland can't stand on its own?
Click the mic back on, Mo, will ya? Just about to start speaking with the mic off, and Barry would never let me hear the end of that. A wee question that came in there from Alistair Robertson in YouTube land. Can you explain the difference in reporting of drug deaths with Scotland to England? I deliberately didn't include that tonight because I want to do a whole live stream and a couple of videos about that as a whole. I think it's important to discuss that and give it its own attention. It's really important. So I'm going to be doing something about that, Alistair. I'm trying to find somebody who that I know in Glasgow that may or may not be using the rooms there for the safe consumption room. I want to have a wee sit down and a chat with them first to see how they feel about it all, and get some first hand knowledge from it all as well. I hope you don't mind. That's okay, right? I've got a wee game to play for the TikTok people. First of all, thank you. That is 3,300 likes. Last week we got it to just over 10,000. So tap the screen. Look, I'll tap it on one of my other accounts there. All right, tap the screen and keep tapping it and see if we can make it to 10,500. 500 more than last time. We've got about an hour. Yes, thank you, Barry, sending me a message there. I am a hapless techno weenie. Okay, right. We're going to go into the last segment, and then I've got a few news articles that I want to talk about. And this is kind of about moving past the propaganda and really seeing what it is all about. Let me just... My voice is going today. Let us get on with this bit. So, what makes an idea unstoppable? Is it the charisma of leaders, or is it the unwavering belief of the people who stand behind that idea? The Scottish independence movement has never been about a single political party or a handful of personalities. It's about the conviction that Scotland should chart its own course, free from external control. Yet, if you've been following our journey through the tactics of the British state and its media, one thing becomes clear. They know better than to attack this idea directly. Instead, they target the faces of the movement, launching relentless attacks on SNP figures like Nicola Sturgeon and the late Alex Salmond as well, God rest his soul. They aim to make independence look like a partisan issue, hoping to undermine the cause by discrediting its champions. It's quite clever, really, isn't it? If they make us focus on scandals, financial investigations, or character smears, they win. We start to be critical of the institutions of government because we're told that they're rubbish. We look at the personalities and we be super critical of them. We see it. It's been in the comments tonight. Some people have said a few things. I don't care. It's about the people, not about the politics. It's independence. And if Scotland wants its independence, the people will get its independence. It's as simple as that. The mechanics of getting there is what is in dispute, but it will happen. But here's the truth we must not forget. Independence, as I've just said, is not about any single leader. It's about the future of our nation. And you know something? The British state knows this. They have ridiculed other nations in the past, India, Malta. Nations yearning for freedom back then, they were painted as financially unstable and incapable of self-rule. The propaganda worked to maintain dependency, to keep the fear of change alive. And today, Scotland faces a similar narrative. We are told an independent Scotland would be an economic disaster. We talked about the economy last week. It would not be an economic disaster. But we're told that even when facts show our immense potential, our renewable energy resources, our thriving exports, and our untapped capabilities. Those things being writing our own trade agreements, making our own way in the world, benefiting from our own exports. Then there's the power of selective reporting. Scotland's governance issues are spotlighted relentlessly. Our healthcare challenges, the teacher pay disputes, policy missteps, making a headline after headline. And we, the people within the independence movement, we mock it as well. We turn round and we say, hey, look, trans rights, that was a big thing, wasn't it? That just divided us something stupid. It really did. I'm not going to get into it just now because I'll upset a few people, But when you have similar crises south of the border like England's NHS, teacher pay strikes with spiralling infrastructural problems, doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. Why? Because when Scotland's struggles are magnified, the illusion is created that we are dysfunctional, that we are flawed, and we are not capable of looking after ourselves. It feeds into the Scotland bad narrative, painting us as forever needing Westminster's oversight. It's a psychological game, one designed to make us doubt our own strengths. On social media, the battleground gets even more insidious. Algorithms favour division, and troll accounts amplify anti-independence rhetoric, creating an illusion of widespread dissent. The strategy is simple: sow chaos, heighten controversy, and create a noisy, disheartening space. Twitter. Wow, what a place. When I first went onto Twitter with my account called The Saltire, right, I was attacked relentlessly by people within the independence movement just because I was different and talking positively about independence and had a different point of view. Right back. So I just stepped back and just watched. Went to Instagram itself instead. Much, much quieter, much nicer to learn how to deal with social media. Anyway, to counter those sort of attacks and that sort of stuff going on, we've got to push back with a positive education about Scottish independence, factual narratives that break these echo chambers. Even within the movement, there are forces working to divide us. Some people stoke infighting, promoting extreme claims or sparking distrust. I felt that before. History shows this tactic too creates fractures from within to weaken the whole. But we can't let them succeed. We need transparency, unity, and a steadfast focus on our shared goal of independence. And we can't ignore the power of fear-based advertising as well. Around key moments like elections or referendums, we see targeted adverts designed to manipulate. They prey on our doubts with messages suggesting economic doom and insecurity without the UK. But we can fight back with our own tools, which is one simple word: facts. By spreading messages that highlight Scotland's strengths, its resilience, and the tangible benefits of independence, we can neutralise the fear. And within social media, every time I go live, I play that jingle right at the start that says like and share, like and share. That's where the power is, okay? The power of you guys tapping the screen, of sharing on Facebook, of copying a link and sticking it on Twitter or wherever you want, okay? The power of the people that don't make the content is utterly vital. On every one of my posts and little things that I put on as a cover picture for this live or various other things, it has the four parties of independence, whether you like them or not, the SNP, the Greens, ALPA and ISP, and I believe there's going to be a fifth one soon, the New Scotland Party. As soon as I can get their logo, that will go as well, because I want to not so much appeal, but make people in all these little groups understand that, from my point of view, independence is more than just politics, more than the narrative that we're shouting at each other internally about, and also how the outside of us is shouting at us and saying that we're rubbish. So we have to accept, and everybody here does, that the Scotland bad narrative is not about the independence movement itself. It's an attack on the personalities and the leadership, a diversion to make us lose sight of the greater cause. I'm going to ask a question just now, and it's a rhetorical question. How many people here, have been openly critical about the SNP and openly critical about ALPA? Do not answer that question. Ask yourself just now why you've done that. SNP are shit, ALPA are toxic. Why do you believe that? Every single one of these people believe in the same things that you do. An independent Scotland, one that is thriving. We're addicted to politics. We think that that is what independence is. It's so not. What's the problem? Why can't we get past that? Why can't we get past that? I'll vote SNP 1 and ALPA 2 when it comes to 2026. I'll get shouted at between now and then every time I post anything about that sort of voting strategy. Incidentally, if you don't believe that voting strategy, there's a whole bunch of videos coming out that I'm working on just now, 1 minute long videos that are going to explain the D'Hondt system, that will explain the strategy of creating a pro-Scottish government and a pro-Scottish opposition. Here's another question for you, another rhetorical one. Just think about this. Would you not rather have a Scottish government and a big chunk of the opposition being pro-Scottish as well? Does that not make sense? Would you not rather have Scottish government speaking to other pro-Indie people about policies that matter to Scotland, rather than arguing with the likes of Anna Sarwar and whatever that guy's name is that runs the Tories now? That's something that I feel we need to get over as well. It's not about the politics, it's about the people. So imagine a national discussion focused not upon the politics, but on the principles of self-governance, democracy, national pride, the what-ifs we can do. That is what the government of the United Kingdom desperately want to avoid. When we think critically, we see through the distractions. That's why I was asking these rhetorical questions. We see that Scotland's future is a question of national potential, not political scandal. No amount of propaganda can kill an idea at the heart of this movement. You can attack our politicians, you can spread rumours and plant doubt, but the belief in a free, independent Scotland, that is an idea beyond reach. Our call for self-determination is bigger than any leader. Our cause is rooted in who we are as a people, because in the end, ideas are bulletproof. And our vision for Scotland, governed by Scots, for Scots, is a force that no propaganda can ever dismantle.
What makes an idea unstoppable? Is it charismatic leaders, or is it the unwavering belief of the people? The Scottish independence movement isn't about parties or personalities. It's about our collective vision for a Scotland free to shape its own future. Yet, the British state knows they can't defeat this idea head-on, so they attack its leaders, hoping to weaken the cause through scandal and drama. It's a diversion. designed to make us doubt, while real issues like England's NHS crisis or teacher strikes are quietly underreported. This selective focus paints Scotland as uniquely flawed, feeding the Scotland bad narrative to keep us dependent. But independence isn't about any politician, it's about the soul of Scotland and our right to self-governance. So ask yourself, if independence is so unthinkable, why must they work so hard to make us believe it?
Why would they? Why? Blah, blah, blah. Put your teeth back in, Mo. Oh, my broken tooth got fixed at the dentist at the start of the week. I have a dazzling smile now. I'm not going to do it. I was so pleased. Anyway, that's by the by. That's the Great Scotland dental treatment for you. Why do they work so hard to make us hate ourselves? Why do they work so hard to make us hate ourselves? We must be doing something right to piss them off. Lisa just had a great question. Let me just go back to it. Mo, what happens if we both vote ALAPA and SNP? Will the SNP remain in power or will it be a hung parliament? Okay, right. The Scottish voting system in a nutshell. Okay, you have two votes. The first vote is for your constituencies. There are 9 constituencies in each regional voting area. That is done the same way as a Westminster vote. It's done first past the post. Now, the only way that that vote links with the second vote, right, is not with the vote, but with the amount of seats that have already been won. Okay, so your second vote is done in a form of proportional representation called the additional member system, and it is calculated by a mathematical formula called the D'Hondt calculation. Don't care what it's called. It just sounds fancy because it was a mathematician called something D'Hondt that made it. Okay? And the calculation is dead easy to understand. You take all the votes from the list, not from the constituencies, just from the list. So let's make it nice and easy and say it's 100,000 votes. Okay, nice easy calculation. And let's say the SNP in Central got all 9 constituencies back in 2021, which they did. They won all 9 constituencies, so they've got 9 seats already. Okay, so all the votes from the list get divided by all the seats that have already been won plus 1. Alright, so those 100,000 votes that the SNP got on the list get divided by, can anybody tell me what 9 plus 1 is? 10. Well done. I was very condescending, I'm so sorry. I have been going on about this for years, so if I sound patronising, I apologise in advance, right? So 100,000 divided by 10 is 10,000. So when the calculations for the 7 seats on the list are actually calculated, okay, the SNP don't start with 100,000 votes, they start with 10,000 votes. Now, in that particular region, I think Labour had 80,000 votes. Okay, they won no seats in the constituency, so their 80,000 list seats did not get divided by anything to begin with. But, so they won the first seat, but in the second round, to decide who the next seat was, Labour had 1 seat, and it was 1 plus 1, so their 80,000 votes got divided by 2. So now they have 40,000 votes. And that calculation goes all the way through until all the seats have been done. The lowest amount of votes were the Greens. They got, I think, about 12,000 votes. So they actually won the last seat in the regional list. So if the SNP wanted to win 1 seat on the list, the actual amount, I've done the calculations, was they would needed about another 40,000 votes. That was never going to happen. However, let's consider this, and this is a long-winded way for answering Lisa's question, right? Let's say there was a political party called Saorsa. I'm not using ALAPA or Greens because I don't want to be contentious, but let's say there was a fictitious party called Saorsa. And everybody in the SNP decided, we're not going to vote for the SNP on the list. We're going to vote for Saorsa as a party. And let's say the Saorsa party had 4 candidates in each list throughout Scotland. Each list thing. I've done those calculations because I'm a complete nerd when it came to this, right? I did all the calculations, and if Saorsa was actually a party, they would have won 4 seats. 4 seats in the central, 3 seats in the central, 4 seats in Glasgow, and 4 seats in every single other region using the SNP votes. Okay, now, there was 1.1 million SNP votes nationally throughout all the regions, delivered 2 seats on the list. If we had taken those votes and given them to a fictitious pro-indie party that did not have any constituency MSPs, which meant that they would have started with 100,000 votes in the central region, we would have ended up with 31 more pro-indie bums on the seats. It would have actually been it would have been 25 because the Greens would have lost some and the SNP wouldn't have got their 2 seats, right? But still, that's 25 more pro-independence people sitting in opposition, pushing at the unionists. So there wouldn't be a hung parliament. It would be a minority parliament, a minority government. And the additional member systems, Lisa, our voting system is kind of designed to have minority governments because it kind of forces the conversation politically, a bit of to and fro and a bit of negotiating for things like budgets and votes for legislation and stuff. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that one party should be 100% dominant. I think the ability to be able to speak to each other is important, but the SNP can't speak to the unionist parties because they're all dicks. They are. Let's just face it. It's after midnight. Yes, it's a minute after midnight. I can call them dicks happily right now. So yeah, that's it when it comes to that sort of thing. I'm going to be making little short 1-minute videos to discuss all that. I've got it scripted and it's far neater than the way I just described it, and I'm going to get them out within the next couple of weeks. I think it's important that we do educate people about this. People will not listen to the whole idea of like a long-winded explanation. People switch off after about 90 seconds, maybe even 10 seconds. So if you're ever going to engage and believe that voting SNP1, any other Indie 2 is the way to go, please speak to me about it. I'll give you these videos. You can use them. I'm writing a blog about it. And I think that... Hold on a second. Yes, I agree with you, Barry, 100%. My incredibly technical alchemist, lazy sod, has said we need a page on the website where we spell out how the voting system works. Absolutely. We will create that and make it dead good. Dead good. All right. I hope that answered your question, Lisa. Ha! Facts. I like it. Right. Okay. So let me just quickly conclude on everything that we've talked about tonight. Okay. We've talked about Scotland bad. So where does this leave us? After looking at the relentless Scotland bad narrative, it's clear that this isn't just a series of isolated stories or unlucky headlines. It's a sustained systemic effort to shape our national identity, to convince us that Scotland is too weak, too dependent and too flawed to thrive on its own. These aren't mere journalistic oversights, they are tactics designed to undermine our confidence and keep us tethered to Westminster. The media's fixation on every misstep of the SNP, every challenge faced by our public services, is intentional. It creates a perception that Scotland is uniquely unfit for self-governance, while equally or even more severe issues in England are downplayed or ignored. Think about that for a moment. A nation rich in resources, innovation and potential is painted as inherently incapable. That doesn't make sense. But the power of this narrative isn't just in what it reports, it's in what it makes us feel. Doubt, insecurity, even a sense of inferiority. History has shown us that such psychological campaigns are among the most effective tools for those in power. By controlling how a nation sees itself, you control its aspirations and its future. And yet, we've also seen that the spirit of a people, once awakened to the truth, is unbreakable. Scotland is not bad. We are not doomed to fail. Our path forward lies in recognising these manipulations, educating ourselves and educating each other, and pushing back with our own stories of resilience, achievement, promise, determination, and hope. It's about breaking the cycle of fear and embracing the truth that Scotland can stand tall, independent, and very, very successful. Now, the question that I leave you with on this subject is this. If the idea of an independent Scotland is so unthinkable, why does it require such an enormous effort to make us believe it? Because maybe, just maybe, those who fight the hardest to make us doubt are the ones who fear most what we're truly capable of. Think about it and decide for yourself what future Scotland deserves.
I can't get no sleep.
Indie chat for independence insomniacs. That is why we are so late at night. Also, it's because my kids aren't around and I get a bit of peace and quiet. It's just the cats meowing. Right, so that is Scotland bad. Done. Okay, it is now firmly anchored in YouTube land and TikTok land, and the videos are there and the blog's there as well for people to go and look at. Incidentally, let's just bring this up here. Go to lazylinks.co.uk/Saorsa and you will go and see every single link that Saorsa has. The website, the blogs, the fledgling podcasts that we've done, stuff like that. Okay, seriously, it's all there to be done. The website is saorsascot.com. That's where we dump everything down there. It's made by Lazy Sod, my utter amazing technical wiener. I'm going to get battered for that. He's also made this thing called Idle Blog as well. So if you're somebody that wants to write independent stories, blogs and things like that, idle.blog. All right. It's a very simple, direct, content focused website. You sign up for it and then you just write your blog. It remembers it. And then you publish it and then take that link, stick it on YouTube. Dead easy. It's a great wee place. I've still got 3 things to go on there and I keep forgetting to put them on. Next day off's Monday. That's the next great day of admin. Yes, tune, Julianne. How are you feeling, pal? Just want to say, without going into too much detail, Julianne is a fucking warrior. Alright? You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I did see another wee thing in YouTube land. They're doing the same with the people who are speaking out about Gaza. You're absolutely right. Let's get something perfectly clear right now. The propaganda surrounding the utter tragedy and disgusting genocide of the people of Gaza, all right, is in itself a crime. To say that what the media is saying and what they've said is outrageous. Outrageous. I've been protesting, campaigning for Palestinian liberation since I was about 12 or 13. About the same length of time as I've been doing it for Indy. And my story for coming to the Palestinian liberation movement is an interesting one, which we can talk about another time, because I've got 3 different little things that we also need to talk about. This is my little addendum from today. 3 little news articles, alright? So, first one is about the GB Energy Office. I'm going to sound really cynical here. I wrote this pretty much just with these 3 little things just before I went live, so I'm going to read it straight out for you. GB Energy promised a bold green revolution, and what do we get? No shiny headquarters in Aberdeen, but just a minging wee corner of a civil service office block. The so-called energy investment vehicle of Labour's Bright Vision will nestle alongside oil behemoths like Shell and Dana Petroleum. So, how much space for this supposed revolution? Well, who knows? The Department of Energy Security and Net Zero is already packed into these offices. They haven't exactly rolled out the welcome mat. Any word on staffing for GB Energy? Anybody? There's nobody here, by the way. I'm just doing that for effect. Well, Labour's not going to say anything about the staffing. Their spokespersons are non-answering about roles being driven by priorities, feeling like a masterclass in vagueness. I just rewrote the, what's it called, article, by the way, the Nationals article. And then you've got the director, Jürgen Meyer, will not even set up shop in Aberdeen, but in Salford. You remember when the headquarters was promised to be in Aberdeen, the green capital of the UK, of green energy? Empty Labour words. So Jackie Dunbar has summed it up perfectly. A couple of spare offices in a government building hardly inspire confidence for a just energy transition. Labour couldn't even support an amendment to cut energy bills for household. Honestly, what is next? How are we supposed to believe this game-changing initiative will break free from old oil interests or genuinely invest in Scotland's future? So riddle me this. Is GB Energy here to transform our energy landscape, or just add another chapter to Westminster's Book of Broken Promises? GB Energy is a joke, okay? An utter joke. It is not going to be making any electricity or power. It's just going to be an investment vehicle in infrastructure. Basically, a disguised private investment potential thingamabobby. Alright, let's just give a little bit of money to the people that build it, and we have a little bit of a stake in what's going on. Little itty bitty bit. You know, crazy. I don't like it. I don't like how we've got 4 massive cables being built from right down the east coast that will take all the renewable energy and siphon it down south. Just now, as we're part of the UK, I think that is troubling and utterly disgraceful. As an independent nation, I hope they build these cables much quicker before we're independent, because when we are independent, we can just stick a friggin' meter on them and charge them for the electricity. Simple as that. So yeah, carry on building that. It's much easier to divert a cable than it is to divert the way the oil was done. Incidentally, right, something I've not talked about, okay, with regards to Scotland Bad and our whole infrastructure and things like this, is Grangemouth. Think about this for a second, right? This is not part of what I've just written, but about 97% of the UK's oil and gas is in Scotland's territory. And we, by this time next year, are not going to have the ability to process that oil and gas. Scotland bad. We can't even process that vast wealth that we've got remaining there. Oh, you're rubbish, Scotland. You got all that. Well, we'll do it for you because you're incapable of actually processing all that. Dicks. Right. I think we need to do a whole thing about Grangemouth. Might go up there and actually take some film up there. Anyway, next little thing is about the United Kingdom's direct spending initiative in Scotland. 1.4 billion of direct investment in Scotland over the next 10 years. Sounds grand, doesn't it? But let's take a wee closer look. This supposed windfall will bypass Holyrood completely, cutting Scotland's government out of that decision-making process. Labour says it's new money, but most of these projects are just recycled, levelling up scraps left over by the Tories' failed schemes. Remember when Brexit robbed Scotland of EU funds? Westminster gleefully snatched control of all these things, promising better. Now Labour's parroting the same control mantra, but placing it in the hands of the Scotland office, the Scottish office, and not Holyrood. So much for restoring Scottish authority. When you look at the big things, of 20 million here and 20 million there, half of it has already been announced, with Labour taking credit for funding they claim the Tories failed to allocate. And they have the cheek to boast about it ending austerity while the 2-child benefit cap and other brutal Tory cuts remain. Here's the thing, right? So they're going to go and spend on maybe infrastructure things or, put money into free ports, which I really can't stand, by the way. I've made a video about that, but I'm going to send it to a couple of people to make sure it's factual before I publish it. Okay. Would it not be, is austerity not things that directly affect you and me? Like our ability to spend and put food on the table, to get a bus to work instead of walking to work, to keep the heating on when it's cold. Is that not what really affects us? For people that have got more kids that might have a higher expenditure, would removing that 2-child benefit cap not have more of an impact than, what was it, 120 million? Is that how much it was? No, 1.4 billion. I wonder how much the 2-child benefit cap, taking that off, would actually cost Scotland. It'd be funny if it was about that, or a wee bit less. That's crazy. I don't get it. But £88 billion, 41 back, 30 spent on welfare, about 14 billion left over as a surplus for us to invest and spend on our own infrastructure and defence. We're investing in ourselves. We've got more money coming in. We're encouraging international investment by our green energy. But Scotland's bad. Suppose we can't finish today without talking about the budget, yeah? So the Labour government has announced an additional 3.5 billion for Scotland. I do have a clapping button here somewhere, but it doesn't work through the software that I use for this. Anyway, let me just crack on. This generosity comes after Westminster siphoned £88 billion from Scotland to the UK Treasury. So we get an extra 3.4 billion. Great. And now they're doling out extra pocket money, telling the Scottish government to use it effectively. Now, come on, children. We're giving you an extra £50 this weekend. Just don't go and spend it all on those things that make you high, or beer, or those games that you play like Roblox. Don't do anything like that. Just spend it wisely. Go and have a McDonald's or something. I can't stand this. I can't stand the whole condescension of Westminster and first-time Labour politicians turning round and telling us how we should spend our money. Grr. Anyway, sorry. Rachel Reeves struts into Parliament talking about driving growth in Scotland, as if Anna Sarwar and the Scottish Labour hold some secret key to prosperity. But what's this grand investment? A city and growth deal for Argyll and Bute that Labour themselves put on ice only 2 months ago? We're supposed to be impressed? Meanwhile, the largest real terms funding settlement since devolution is still crumbs from a table we've more than paid for. And Reeves' idea of a no return to austerity, tax hikes of 40 billion to fix the foundations of a broken economy. But whose foundations are we fixing? Employers get a £25 billion hit on national insurance starting at the lower income threshold. Congratulations, small businesses, you're paying more to prop up Westminster's disastrous decisions. Oh, and they're dragging pension pots into inheritance tax, raking in billions from more Scottish families. The SNP Financial Secretary, Shona Robinson, tries to put on a brave face on it, calling it the budget a step in the right direction. Bullshit. It's not a step in the right direction. It's not even putting the shoes on to take a step. The first thing to remarkably reduce austerity is to remove the 2-child benefit cap. You know, that is us within the union. Outside of the union, as an independent nation, we would be investing in our people. Look at what the Scottish Government has done already to invest in people to mitigate the Westminster austerity. You know what all these things are, and I don't care if you don't like them, if there's anybody here that's not pro-independence. You know, we have to remember, and yes, hold on, Scottish Resistance said it up there, it is our own money. We are getting our own money back. I've got about 3 more paragraphs. I'm not even going to read them because I can feel the rant coming on in my head. I like having money. I think everybody likes having money. I like the Scottish Government having more money to spend, and I'm not going to turn around and say, hey, just keep that money, Westminster. What I want to see, though, is Scotland having all of its money and investing some of its money back in to make more money for us. I think that an independent Scotland would be pretty good at doing that, because we know better up here what we need to do to make things better. Scots making decisions for Scotland, for the Scottish people. Westminster telling us how to spend money that we've already given them, that they've given us a little bit back from. No. Right, okay, I've ranted too long and I've gone 22 minutes longer than I usually do. I'm going to head across the Discord to quieten down, go and make myself some toast, another cup of coffee. And next week, I've already prepared the content, most of it already. Next week, we are going to do the positive case for the union. We're going to look at that as a phrase, as a whole rhetoric. Listen, here's the thing, all right? Has anybody ever had a firm answer from any soft unionist as well as the hardcore Union Jack shagging unionists, all right? Has anybody ever had an answer about, just give me a positive case for the union that doesn't involve history or the Scotland bad phrase? Can't do it, you need us. That's why, that's the positive case for the union, because we can't do it on our own. It's not a positive case. We're going to look at that next week. So, let me just say, alright, where's my button for taking it off? It's gone. Where is ending gone? Oh boy, hapless techno weenie Barry will never let me hear the end of it. Go back to the other screen. And there it is. Right, good. So next week we'll do that. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just checking to see if there's any other comments. No, good. Speak to you all next week. Have a great weekend.